good. Please, we're live. Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to the Lurie Daniel Favorite Show here on SiriusXM's Urban View, where talk empowers and becomes action. Programming note, on Thursday and Friday, Urban View, pay attention. Thursday and Friday, we have some amazing pre-recorded shows for you. We will be out for the holiday, which means that nobody will be getting a live news breakdown, unless the news just goes so crazy I can't help myself. I mean, that could happen. I'm not going to say it ain't going to happen for sure. I'm just letting y'all know Thursday and Friday I plan to be not on the YouTubes, unless, of course, the world is requiring some assistance and analysis. Just want to put that out there. But we tomorrow are going to be hosting our second call-in show. It is call-in for elders who have memories of life before 1964. Why that year? Because we are looking at 1964 Civil Rights Act being a pivot point in the history of the nation. And last month, we did an amazing call-in show. We got to hear from everybody who they lived in the pre-1964 era. They could make comparisons between what segregation was like and what integration was like. And we are going to do the same thing tomorrow for our elders who have memories before 1964. And we want to hear from you specifically with regards to what it looked like to be building community. Like, what institutions did you have? What institutions did you look to? What role did Black-owned institutions play? Because we need to have a real understanding as to what role Black institutions are going to have to play in the future. And we can do that really, really well by looking to the past. So just want to put that information out there. We got a lot to cover today, so I'm going to get right into it. And of course, most of this stuff I'm not going to be able to do in full detail, which is why you should also pay attention and listen to the podcast, which is called Lurie Breaks It Down. You can get that podcast anywhere where you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all those weirdness. And any other place where you can get your podcast. I'm not going to judge where people get their podcasts. I already asked y'all to protest too many things. So lots to get to. Let's get into it. And I might have a song. Y'all know sometimes I be singing. Not singing, I be singing. And I might have a song inspired by one of the commenters on my YouTube channel. We'll just talk about that in just a minute. Although I think they deleted their comment. I mean, I was trying to find it to read it. I wanted to read the comment to the people so they knew why I was singing. I'm just going to have to give you the gist of it because I think they deleted their comment. Anyway, we want to first acknowledge that we have a new ancestor. Viola Fletcher, who was the oldest living survivor of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, has made transition. She was 111 years old. And I first learned about this when attorney Demario Solomon Simmons, who we've had on the show multiple times, shout out to you and to your beautiful family, when he said the following in his statement, he said, quote, "I don't really have the words today. We've lost Viola Fletcher, Mother Fletcher, one of the two longest living known survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. She was 111 years old, and she left this world without a single act of redress from the city of Tulsa for what was taken from her as a little girl in Greenwood." He goes on to say that when I think about Mother Fletcher, I don't just see a historic figure or symbol. I see a woman that I sat with, prayed with, laughed with, and went to court with. I see a family that trusted us with their pain, their story, and their hope. And when we first took on this case, Mother Fletcher, Mother Randall, and her late brother Hughes Van Ellis, Uncle Red, there was no hesitation from them. None. They had every reason to be skeptical. They had been dismissed, ignored, and gaslit for decades. But when we laid out what we wanted to do, they got on board immediately. They said in their own way, if there is still a road to justice, we are willing to walk it. Demario Solomon Simmons says, "I'll never forget that. These were elders who had every right to rest, and instead they chose to stand up and fight, and again, on this time on a global stage, not just for themselves, but for every survivor and descendant whose name the world doesn't know." And he continues to write very eloquently in his piece. I encourage you all to take a look at it. Jonah, if we could please put that out on social media for people to see. Attorney Demario Solomon Simmons has been doing God's work as it pertains to trying to fight for these cases. So we really appreciate what he was able to say there. We should also note that before I even got to the elevator yesterday, as I was logging off, I logged off the show. I'm heading to the elevator, getting ready to go to my office. Shout out to the law center. And I learned that whiteness, entitlement, and incompetence are not enough. I mean, we already knew that, which is why we coined the phrase WEI, white, entitled, and incompetent. But white, entitled, and incompetent lawyer Lindsay Halligan has basically lost all her cases. These were the cases that you may recall she was brought in, though she has no qualifications. She's an insurance lawyer, and sorry to the insurance law bar, but you know good and goddamn well there is nothing about looking at car accidents or whatever else y'all look at. God bless you. We appreciate you. That would prepare you to be a full prosecutor in a district that actually is one of the most successful prosecutorial districts in the nation. You just ain't prepared. You ain't got the range. I ain't got the range. That's why I'm not in that role. But I'm also not white, entitled, or incompetent. So Lindsay Halligan, we find out not only was she not appointed properly, which means that Pam Bondi and the people who were over her, who should also be losing law licenses to the extent that they actually have them, appointed her in a way that made her functionally deficient. Nothing she did was going to ever pass muster because she was put in a position erroneously. That was the first thing. So the judges didn't even have to get to the fact that she did not show the grand jury the entire indictment. They did not have to get to the fact that there were hours missing of grand jury testimony. They didn't have to get to none of that because she failed on her face, which means she and Pamela Bondi should have their law degrees snatched, should be disbarred. We know that's probably not going to happen because this is a country that really prioritizes mediocrity, which is why we have white, entitled, and incompetent as a thing in the first place. Anyway, I talk more about this in the podcast episode, but this is really an example of what I like to call struggle racism. You trying so hard to file prosecutorial cases and criminal cases as against, or even if they're civil fraud cases, as against people like Letitia James and Lisa Cook, black women who you could never hold a candle up to them. And you did so with such racism in your heart, but you're not even smart enough to racism well. They did a bad race. They did a WEI racism. Your ancestors are ashamed. Your ancestors did not go around colonizing the world and enslaving people all over the place, giving in to all of their lower level devilish energy for you to just fuck it up this way. You ought to be embarrassed for a whole host of reasons, but certainly for that. Another group of people who should be embarrassed are all of you who follow these rage bait accounts. We found out yesterday, really over the course of the past couple of days, that Elongated Muskrat had made a serious blunder. And his blunder was one where he turned on this new feature on Twitter, X or whatever you want to call it. And basically it was a feature that was going to identify for you where the account was based. Now, I don't know if he was completely oblivious to the fact that a lot of the accounts that have huge following that is driving sort of the MAGA sphere were not based in America. But when MAGA found out that these were accounts not based in America, they got very, very, very upset. You got people who are trolling you, MAGA, from countries like Nigeria, India, Kenya, Pakistan, Russia, and Bangladesh. And as one user noted, nothing says America first like tweeting from 6 different countries. Another user was like, India and Nigeria finessed the fuck out of these white boomers. And that is absolutely the case, because we essentially have a whole community of people. We're talking a lot about community today. We have a whole community of people whose anger, whose indignation, whose willingness to go to elections and go to voting booths and vote against their own economic interests was largely driven by misinformation and disinformation campaigns. Similar to how I explained to you all how Fox News was airing footage this September, but using footage that was from the George Floyd era protest, the Black Lives Matter protest, and tried to pretend like that was the footage that was happening right now, and then basically got Donald Trump to get very upset about that, which he did, and then he ordered the troops into Portland as a result. And then the Fox News also showed pictures of people from the 2020s protests burning the flags, and then Donald Trump was on this whole, we gotta, people who are burning American flags are gonna get prosecuted. That all came from misinformation, from Fox News taking 5-year-old footage and airing it as if that was happening today. That's basically what has been happening all over Twitter. And we find this out because accounts with like millions of followers, right? There's one account, Ivanka News, that's got an American flag and a bald eagle in the name. And that account is based in Nigeria. It's based in Nigeria. They've got over 1 million followers. You've got accounts where people are basically getting paid, getting pizzade off of making white people very upset and pro-MAGA, and they're making money off of you, and they're not even based here. So I guess USA. I mean, if you want, but it should be embarrassing to you, but I don't even know that these people have enough shame. The other group of people who don't have enough shame to be embarrassed are the people who actually believed that you were going to get money from DOGE. Now, I was not surprised, but I'm still a little shocked to realize just how non-DOGE DOGE has been. Y'all remember DOGE, the Department of Governmental Espionage, the Department of Governmental, enlisting people to run away with your money and your data, or the Department of Governmental Efficiency, whoever you're asking, they might have a different definition. But basically, remember how a couple months ago, Donald Trump was like, we're going to give everybody $5,000 stimmy checks from DOGE. And some of y'all's cousins believed it. I say some of y'all's cousins because I know you ain't believe it, but some of y'all's cousins actually believed it. Some of our melanemic friends actually believed it. Well, DOGE doesn't actually exist any longer. And basically, we learned from reporting that DOGE not only doesn't exist right now, DOGE has not existed for a very long time. Now, you may recall that DOGE had a whole lot of goals, right? DOGE was something that Donald Trump kicked off on day 1 of his second term. He said that they were going to be a revolutionary force for shrinking bureaucracy, cutting waste, and dragging the federal government into the future. This is a direct quote from Brian Allen's Substack, where he writes in an article entitled "The Department of Government Efficiency, one of Trump's most popularized and controversial creations has ceased to exist. And he goes on to remind us that the DOGE mandate included things like auditing federal programs, cutting redundant civil service rules, leveraging artificial intelligence for government operations, centralizing federal procurement, recommending the structural elimination of entire agencies. What DOGE actually did, as you may recall, when Big Balls or Tiny Nuts, Grape Sack, or whatever you want to call them, and all the cutesy little boys who was coming along with elongated muskrat, who clearly are virginal in their approach to things because these are the incel class of people, they went into these agencies. Remember how they did it? They came with henchmen, who I still believe were Proud Boys, the same way I believe ICE ain't nothing but a whole bunch of Proud Boys. They came into agencies, agency by agency by agency. They came in, they brought their computers, their laptops, and their discs, and all the things, whatever the cables and all the shit they had to connect, and they basically downloaded every stitch of data that every single agency had on every single American, and then they sold it to people who run companies like Palantir. They sold it to people who run companies like SpaceX, like they sold our data. They took information and gave access to it to other people who need information for their business models to exist. Now, we're going to have to talk about artificial intelligence. I'm not going to have time to do that today. This will probably be something I focus more intently on tomorrow, because there is an AI bubble coming. I believe it. The same way I knew that there was going to be a housing bubble that came, and sure enough, it came. There's going to be an AI bubble. We'll talk about that later. But the whole idea was that they were taking this information and feeding it to their AI system so that the systems could learn what it needed to learn. There was one of the Grape Nuts, Tiny Sack people, who literally put all of our information out on the dark web so that anybody could access to it. And they shut down agencies. They dismantled entire wholesale agencies. They said they saved tens of billions of dollars. Do you remember the website that used to track what DOGE was doing, and how that website was so full of errors they ultimately ended up taking the website down because they could not confirm any of the information? And people kept pointing out, hey man, you lied. That's that's an addition, not a subtraction. You ain't did basic math. You can't even math right. You a WEI math too. So we now have been told that DOGE is no longer. There is not going to be a check of any sort coming out of DOGE, because DOGE doesn't exist. And this is particularly important in light of the fact that y'all's president is trying to prevent elongated muskrat from testifying. There are lawsuits right now where they are trying to get elongated muskrat and other senior advisors to the president to testify about what it was that they were doing, because you shut down entire agencies like USAID, which is a very controversial agency, but part of its portfolio was making sure that millions of people all across the planet who do not have access to food were going to get access to food. As a result of shutting down that agency, they have basically signed death certificates for hundreds of thousands of people who have already perished as a result of not getting access to the food that they had come to rely upon. Now, the Justice Department is saying, well, we have a policy of not allowing very high-level elected officials to basically testify on things because it's going to be, inconvenient to the president and it's going to be bad for policy. And that would matter, except the judge pointed out that elongated muskrat was tweeting on a social media account that he owns, on a social media app that he owns, things like the following: we spent the weekend feeding USAID into the wood chipper. It's kind of hard to say you were just an advisor and you weren't related to the project that you helped to destroy, you used to destroy the nation, and then you on your own Twitter account talking about how you was using your position to destroy the whole nation. So this is going to be played out in court, but basically we right now are waiting to see what is going to happen in terms of this testimony, because it wasn't just USAID. This is how they got rid of the Department of Education. This is how they got rid of the Department of Environmental Protection. This is how they got rid of all the departments that we have traditionally relied upon, and we knew this was going to happen because this is exactly what they said they were going to do in Project 2025. So there's that. Now, you may be wondering, well, where is the president? Because we're supposed to have health care, and the president said that he had concepts of a plan. Now, Republicans, as I've mentioned many, many times before, basically ever since Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act became a thing, Republicans have attempted to destroy the Affordable Care Act. This is not a surprise to anybody who has a memory, because they voted, 60, 70 times to prevent the Affordable Care Act from coming into existence. They were very, 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 very upset about the Affordable Care Act. And so they finally, in this administration, were able to get rid of it. They cut the Affordable Care Act. They're getting rid of the subsidies. And if something doesn't happen between now and the end of the year, millions of people are not going to have access to health care and are going to be thrust out of the health insurance pools. And Republicans are supposed to have a plan. Well, you will be happy to know your president has a plan. Now, I didn't think this was going to happen. I was very shocked. I was shooketh when I saw this taking place, but your president actually does have a healthcare plan. Now, Amina, I want us to pull this clip. This is breaking news because not everybody is aware to the healthcare plan, but I want you to take a listen. They are announcing it on CNN as we speak. Let's take a listen.
We're learning President Trump is planning to unveil a new health care proposal, and at this point, we're still waiting to know exactly what's in it, but we're told it could include a temporary extension of the Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies, which are due to expire at the end of the year. They were at the center of the government shutdown. Okay. However, the subsidies could come with some fresh guardrails that could include new income limits and a requirement that everyone pay some form of a premium.
That's terrible.
Now, we should note that if the subsidies do expire, millions of Americans are expected to see their premiums more than double next year. Zach Cooper is joining us now. He's a professor of health policy at Yale University. Zach, thanks for being here. As I noted, we are very much still waiting for specifics here.
Yes, we are, but here he comes. You're going to give it to us.
I'm sorry, this has actually been, sorry, Zach, we're getting breaking news while I'm talking to you. I have learned that the White House has postponed its expected unveiling of this new health care proposal. It was expected to be unveiled today. We'll learn more, hopefully, about that in the coming moments. But again, this is postponed, but we can talk about the ideas here.
I am confused. I am shooketh. They came up with a plan where they were going to just extend the subsidies that the Democrats had already put into the There's no plan? There's no plan. Got a plan. They ain't got shit. They ain't even got concepts of a plan. They don't have 50-11. Barack Obama came into office in January of 2009. The Affordable Care Act was one of the first legislative victories that he was able to accomplish. He spent a lot of political capital getting that shit through. And it wasn't even great. It was technically a Republican plan that he got from Mitt Romney out of Massachusetts. We forget that part. But literally, they took the Republican health care plan that Mitt Romney had successfully implemented in the state of Massachusetts. They fixed some things, they rolled it out, and the Republicans fought against it. They have been coming up against it for years. And they don't have a plan now that they've actually been able to successfully destroy the healthcare plan that existed. So there's that. But, you know, six in one hand, much half a dozen in the other, I guess. I also want to talk with you all about Target. They have basically hit rock bottom. There are now reports that they are looking like they may have to consider bankruptcy, child. And in the podcast, I'm going to go through a whole host of things that you should know about Target. They done had to fire their CEO. They done cut half all the pay. They firing over 1,000 corporate people. It's a mess. It's as if someone had a target on their back. And you know who put the target there? They did. Because until you do right by black people, everything you think about gonna fail. Till you do right by us, the jail you built for us is the one you're gonna rot in. I don't have time to really get into that today in this particular moment because the man is gonna cut us off. But I do want you to pay attention to the podcast because we talk extensively about all the travails of Target, and they are travailing over there. But we mentioned that because this holiday season, what we are not doing is going back to Target. We're not shopping at Home Depot, and no, we're not shopping at Amazon either. We ain't buying it. We're not buying none of that crap because quite frankly, they play in our face. They allow for fugitive slave laws type realities to take place. Home Depot, I got a whole ass sponsor who part of the sponsorship says, and you can get this thing at Home Depot. I can't say that no more because Home Depot is where people basically go to catch slaves, the modern day slave situation. And so there's that, but I'll talk more about that in the podcast episode. Just what I need you to know is that come Friday, ain't gonna no Black Friday unless it's a black owned business. And now people are saying shop small. And I'm like, yeah, shop small, shop black. Shop small and black. Shop black small. Shop black. That's what I want you to shop black. My daughter was like, does this mean I can't get the new jacket that I want? I was like, no, you can get a jacket. I found a black-owned jacket maker, and it's a dope website. Shout out to my sister friend who sent me this link. Hey1920.com. Amazing jackets. They're super dope, and that's where I'm planning to get my next winter jacket, so I'll let y'all know how it goes. Black-owned company. We need to support black. Shop small, but shop black. Shop black, shop black, shop black. Now, finally, I want to conclude with a song. There was somebody on my YouTube account who basically was upset that I criticized people who did not vote for Kamala Harris. Now, I got to be honest with you. I was never a part of the K-Hive. And I've said that on Twitter before. Like, when Kamala Harris was first running, I didn't think America was going to ever vote for a black woman. I was right. And so I was more like, okay, they might vote for a white woman. And Elizabeth Warren was someone I had been following for many, many years. And so, like, I thought maybe white people will vote for the white woman. And she had been doing a lot of work with economic justice. She had just started the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau a couple years earlier. So I was like, okay, you know, either of them would be amazing. I think Kamala would be phenomenal, but Kamala is a black woman, and we already know that they're not going to do it. And I know Barack Obama had already won, but y'all, she's got a vagina. Come on. And sometimes, occasionally, there are folks who are in my YouTube channel who will say things like, why you never have smoke for the Democrats, which I actually do. I have a lot of smoke for the Democrats. Or why you always criticizing people who vote for Kamala or who didn't vote for Kamala. And, you know, I got to be honest with you, and I say this more extensively in the podcast. I kind of want to get to the song, so I'm skipping through some things right now. But I do criticize people who did not vote for Kamala Harris. I do. Whether you're black, whether you're a person of color, whether you're white, your job when you go into an election booth is to pick between the candidates who can actually win and ask yourself the following question. Which of these candidates will either help my community the most or hurt my community the least? Elections are about us as electors giving people who are going to be elected officials the power that you would typically give a king or queen. And that's not a foolish decision. That's a very, very important decision because as king or queen, they will be able to give away the resources. Resources include money for schools and capacity for jobs and housing and education and healthcare and sanitation and mail and delivery services and public transportation, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you have the ability to clean your own water, grow your own food, educate your own self, heal your own self, send your own mail, clean your own trash, and do all of that on your own, then no, you don't need to vote. You don't need to vote. But the rest of us who live in America, who live on this planet, actually have to have systems that are going to work for us. So the reality is, and again, I go far more into detail about this in the episode or in the podcast episode, but I want, however, to acknowledge that every so often I come up with a song. Every so often I come up with songs, not because like I'm a songstress, I'm not. I was a tenor, mainly because I couldn't get very high in the notes. And I sing really well in a group of people. But every so often the spirit of song comes upon me. And today's song was inspired by John Legend, mainly because when my daughter was a little girl, this song, Give Your All to Me, was a song that would calm her down. So I'm going to sing it for you because this is for the people who be camping in my YouTube comments talking about why you criticizing people who didn't vote for Kamala. All Kamala had to do was divorce herself from Joe Biden and say that Gaza, blah, 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 blah. And so this song is for you. Feel free to laugh. I'm not a singer. I'm not a soloist, but here we go. This is to Give Your All to Me. Did Trump lie to you like he always do? Did he get you to vote for him by convincing you she's Indian? Did Trump lie to you because that's all he do? Got you voting like a poor white against your own interests out of spite? Did he lie to you? Because that's all he do. Sorry. What can you say now that it's done? You voted for a tyrant or stayed home. He got your head spinning. Your rights are dimming as he steals your money and land. What were you thinking, talking about? She ain't black enough, don't matter now. 'Cause you're seeing how we're reeling and now the country is doomed. We're headed for danger, but you're in denial. You voted third party and gave them the power. Did Trump lie to you like he always do? Did he get you to vote for him by telling you that she was Indian? Did Trump lie to you because that's all he do? Got you voting like a dumb poor white against your black interests out of spite? Did he lie to you? Or did you choose to be a fool? Oh. Sure, it feels bad when you get called out. You voted third party or you voted the couch. But now you're seeing your voting was a part of the problem. But you don't want to hear any of that. Thought you'd get to hide behind anti-Kamala crap. See the lyrics, they don't all work together, but go with it. But our people, they need more, and you ain't got a clue. We're headed for danger, but you're in denial. You voted third party or not at all and gave them the power. And now we're mad at you because of what you do. You tried to vote for Donald Trump, and now we're all living in the goddamn dump. Did he lie to you? Or did you choose to be a fool? Oh. Oh, I love it. Now, we already know I am not a songstress, but I feel that the spirit of song every so often just helps me to purge. And interestingly enough, I went to the YouTube comment to try to find it and take a picture, and it looks to be deleted. I think they felt like a hit dog hollering. So that is my contribution. Do with it what you will. Somebody who can actually sing, please take the lyrics and make it actually work, because I'm limited in my capacity. There's only so much that I can do, but I do try my best. YouTube, I appreciate y'all. Urban View, we'll be back on the